The signal. The quiet hum of the Astra Voyager filled the control room. Captain Nathan Cole stared at the massive observation window, his eyes scanning the endless void of space. The stars shimmered like scattered diamonds, but something felt wrong. A strange unease had settled over him ever since they entered this uncharted region of the galaxy. "Captain," called Ensign Maya Carter from her station, her voice steady but tense. "We've picked up a signal. It's faint, but it's not natural." Nathan turned to her, his sharp green eyes narrowing. "What kind of signal?" "A distress call." Maya shook her head. Her fingers danced over the console, amplifying the audio. A low, rhythmic pulse echoed through the speakers, almost like a heartbeat. The crew exchanged nervous glances. "It's repeating," Maya added. "Every 37 seconds. And, Captain, it's not from any known human source." Nathan's stomach tightened. The Astra Voyager was humanity's most advanced exploration ship, sent to map the far reaches of the galaxy. This was supposed to be a simple mission, but nothing about this signal felt simple. "Can you pinpoint the source?" Nathan asked. Maya nodded, though her expression was grim. "It's coming from a derelict ship, one that's not in our records." The crew fell silent. A ghost ship drifting in the void. It sounded like a tale out of an old spacer's legend. But the signal was real, and it was calling them. "Prepare a boarding team," Nathan ordered. "We're going to check it out." An hour later, Nathan stood in the airlock with his team. Maya, Lieutenant James Vega, and the ship's engineer, Dr. Elena Ruiz. They wore sleek black exosuits, each equipped with oxygen tanks and wrist-mounted scanners. Beyond the airlock, the derelict ship loomed like a shadow against the stars. Its hull was jagged and dark, marked with scars that told stories of ancient battles. "This doesn't feel right," James muttered, his voice crackling through the comms. Nathan didn't disagree, but he couldn't turn back now. Curiosity and duty drove him forward. He gave the signal, and the team moved through the docking tube, entering the derelict ship. The interior was cold and silent, like a tomb. Their helmet lights cut through the darkness, revealing walls covered in strange, glowing symbols. They were unlike any language Nathan had ever seen, alien yet oddly familiar. "What is this place?" Elena whispered, her voice trembling. Nathan didn't answer. His scanner beeped softly, guiding them deeper into the ship. The pulse of the signal grew louder, reverberating through the walls. It felt alive, like it was leading them somewhere. Then they found it. A large chamber opened before them, its walls lined with intricate machinery. At the center was a pedestal, and on it rested a glowing orb. The light from the orb pulsed in time with the signal, casting eerie shadows across the room. "What is that?" Maya asked, her voice barely audible. Nathan stepped closer, drawn to the orb. It wasn't just a machine. It felt like it was watching them, studying them. As he reached out to touch it, a sudden jolt of energy surged through the room. The ship came alive. Lights flickered, and a deep guttural sound echoed through the corridors. The crew's comms filled with static. And then, a voice. "You are not welcome here," it said, cold and mechanical. "Leave now or face extinction." Nathan froze. The voice wasn't human, but it spoke their language perfectly. He looked at his team, his heart pounding. This wasn't just a derelict ship, it was a trap. Before anyone could respond, the doors slammed shut. The orb's light flared, blinding them for a moment. When their vision cleared, they weren't alone. Figures emerged from the shadows, tall, skeletal beings with metallic limbs and glowing red eyes. They moved with unnatural precision, surrounding the team. "Defensive positions," Nathan barked, drawing his plasma pistol. The others followed suit, their weapons aimed at the approaching figures. But the creatures didn't attack. They stood still, as if waiting for something. Then the voice returned, colder than before. "You should not have come here," it said. "Your kind is unworthy." The orb began to pulse faster, its glow intensifying. Nathan realized it wasn't just a signal, it was a beacon. And now, whoever, or whatever, had sent it knew they were here. "We need to leave," Nathan said, his voice firm. "Now." But as they turned to retreat, the ship shifted around them. Walls moved, pathways closed, and the way back to the Astra Voyager was gone. They were trapped. The awakening. The silence felt heavier now. Captain Nathan Cole could hear his own heartbeat thudding in his ears as the alien figures circled the chamber. Their eyes, those cold, red lights, never wavered, tracking every movement the crew made. Nathan kept his plasma pistol raised, but deep down, he knew shooting might make things worse. Maya's voice broke the tense quiet barely above a whisper. "Captain, I don't think they're alive. Look at their movements." Nathan narrowed his eyes. She was right. The way they shifted was too precise, too mechanical. Machines, guardians of some kind. "Drones," James Vega muttered, his weapon trembling slightly in his hand, guarding this place for who knows how long. Nathan kept his eyes on the drones, but allowed his focus to drift to the orb at the center of the chamber. It pulsed faster now, as if reacting to their presence. He couldn't shake the feeling that it was more than just a machine. It was intelligent, aware. "Elena," Nathan said through gritted teeth, "can you get any readings from the orb?" Dr. Elena Ruiz knelt beside her scanner, cautious but determined. She placed the device near the pedestal, and the screen flickered with strange symbols. They shifted rapidly, forming patterns she couldn't decode. "This technology is centuries ahead of us," Elena whispered, her eyes wide. "I can't even begin to understand it." Nathan clenched his jaw. That wasn't what he wanted to hear. "Give me something. Anything." Elena's scanner beeped suddenly, the symbols stabilizing into one single word: awakening. Before anyone could speak, the orb flared brightly, casting sharp shadows across the room. The drones jerked to life, their joints creaking as if they hadn't moved in years. One of them stepped forward, lowering its head to face Nathan. "You were warned," the voice from before echoed again, but this time it sounded clearer, stronger. "Now, you will witness the awakening." The orb began to rise from the pedestal, floating effortlessly in the air. The pulse of its light slowed, but each flash seemed more intense. Nathan could feel it in his bones, a deep, ancient power stirring. James stepped closer to Nathan, his voice tense. "Captain, this feels bad. Really bad." Nathan didn't argue. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, but there was no clear way out. "Stay calm," he ordered. "We're not dying here." Suddenly, the chamber trembled. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling as the derelict ship groaned, metal shifting and twisting around them. The orb's pulse synchronized with the tremors, as if the entire structure was responding to it. "We triggered something," Elena gasped, backing away from the pedestal. "It's not just a beacon, it's a power source." Maya's console flickered as she frantically typed. "Captain, I'm picking up movement across the ship. Lots of it." Nathan's stomach dropped. More drones. Maya hesitated. "No, something bigger." The chamber doors hissed open, but instead of providing an escape, they revealed a long corridor filled with swirling mist. From the haze emerged a towering figure, twice the size of a man. Its body made of sleek, black metal and organic tissue. Its eyes glowed brighter than the drones, burning like miniature stars. The figure stepped forward, the ground trembling beneath its weight, its gaze locked onto Nathan. Unlike the drones, there was something different about this one. It felt sentient. Nathan raised his pistol, trying to steady his hand. "Who are you?" he demanded. The figure's head tilted slightly, as if studying him. Then it spoke, its voice low and resonant. "I am the Sentinel, protector of the vault. You stand on forbidden ground." Nathan exchanged glances with his crew. Sentinel. Vault. This wasn't just a derelict ship. It was a tomb, or perhaps something far worse. We didn't come here to fight, Nathan said carefully. We picked up a distress signal. The Sentinel's eyes flared brighter. The signal was not for you. You have awakened what sleeps. Nathan's heart sank. Whatever had been dormant here was no longer resting. We didn't mean to. Nathan began, but the Sentinel cut him off. Meaning does not change fate, it said coldly. The awakening has begun. The chamber trembled violently, and from the mist beyond the door, more shadows began to move. Creatures, humanoid but twisted, emerged. Their bodies pulsed with the same strange energy as the orb, but their eyes were hollow. Empty shells driven by something far older and darker. Nathan's team fell into defensive formation. What now, Captain? James growled, gripping his weapon tightly. Nathan's mind raced. They couldn't fight this. Not here, not without backup. But retreating wasn't an option either. His gaze flickered to the orb, now hovering higher than before. The answer had to lie with it. Elena. Nathan called out, urgency sharpening his tone. Can we disable it? Elena's fingers flew across her console. I don't know, but if we destroy it, we might bring this entire ship down on top of us. Nathan grimaced. It was a risk, but maybe their only shot. Do it, he said firmly. We can't let this awakening spread. Elena hesitated for a fraction of a second, then nodded. She pulled a small device from her pack, an EMP charge. This should destabilize the orb, but it won't last long. Nathan turned to his crew. Get ready to run. As Elena activated the charge, the orb's glow flickered erratically, and the chamber shook violently. The Sentinel's eyes narrowed, and it took a step forward, but before it could react, the EMP detonated. The light from the orb died instantly, and for a brief moment, silence returned. The Sentinel and the drones froze, their glowing eyes dimming. Nathan exhaled sharply. Move. Now. The crew sprinted for the open corridor, the mist parting as they ran. But deep behind them, Nathan could still feel it. The pulse of something ancient, stirring beneath the silence. And he knew this wasn't over. Into the heart of the vault. The hum of the Astra Voyager's engines was now a distant memory, drowned by the deafening thuds of footsteps echoing behind them. Nathan's breath was ragged as he led his crew through the narrow corridors of the alien vessel. The EMP charge had bought them precious seconds, but the Sentinel wouldn't stay dormant for long. Faster, Nathan urged, his boots skidding slightly as he turned a sharp corner. The glow of the emergency lights flickered across the metal walls, painting them in hues of red and orange. James Vega kept pace just behind him, his rifle held tightly across his chest. I thought this place was abandoned, he hissed. Where the hell did those things come from? They were never gone, Elena answered, her voice strained. They were just waiting. Nathan clenched his jaw. She was right. This ship wasn't a graveyard. It was a prison. And now, whatever was locked inside was stirring. Maya's console beeped rapidly as she ran, scanning the layout of the ship in real time. Captain, there's a maintenance shaft 2 levels below us. If we can reach it, it leads directly to the outer hull. Nathan glanced at her. Is it clear? Maya hesitated, swiping across the holographic display. There's something blocking the lower level. It's faint, but... A sudden screech pierced the air. The walls vibrated as a sharp, metallic shriek echoed from behind. Nathan didn't turn around. He knew exactly what it was. The Sentinel's awake, James growled. And it's pissed. Nathan tapped his comms. Astra Voyager, this is Cole. We need immediate evac. Lock onto our signal and prepare for docking. Static answered him. Nathan's stomach twisted. Astra Voyager, respond. Still nothing. They're not hearing us, Maya said grimly. The orb's disruption must have jammed communications. Nathan swore under his breath. They were alone. We get to that shaft, he said firmly. It's our only chance. The crew pushed forward, racing down the dimly lit corridors. The ship groaned around them, shifting like a living organism. It was almost as if the vessel itself wanted to trap them inside. Elena suddenly stumbled, dropping to one knee as she gasped. "Wait, stop." Nathan spun around. "What's wrong?" Elena pressed her hand to the wall, eyes wide with disbelief. "I can feel it." James frowned. "Feel what?" "The power," she whispered. "The ship is alive. The orb was just a conduit, but this entire vessel is part of a larger system, and it's waking up." Nathan knelt beside her. "Can you shut it down?" Elena shook her head, trembling. "No, it's ancient, beyond anything I've ever seen." Maya's console beeped louder. "Captain, something's coming this way. Fast." Nathan rose to his feet, eyes narrowing at the shadows stretching down the corridor. "James, cover R6. Maya, guide us to that shaft." They moved swiftly, but Nathan could feel the pressure mounting with every step. The air seemed heavier, as if the ship itself was bearing down on them. Suddenly, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. A sprawling network of pathways suspended over a bottomless pit of machinery. In the center, a massive cylinder hummed with faint blue energy. Maya's eyes widened. "That's not supposed to be here. The shaft should be directly below us." "It's shifted," Elena murmured. "The ship's restructuring itself." Nathan's fists clenched. "We need to get across. Move carefully." The crew stepped onto the narrow pathway, weapons ready. The Sentinel's absence felt too convenient. Nathan didn't trust it. Halfway across the chamber, Elena suddenly stopped, staring down at the glowing cylinder below. Her eyes flickered with recognition. "That's it," she said quietly. Nathan turned to her. "What is?" "The core." Elena's voice trembled with a mixture of awe and dread. "The heart of this ship. If we destroy it, we shut everything down." James grimaced. "Didn't you say that could bring the whole ship down on top of us?" "Yes," Elena admitted, "but it might be the only way to survive." Nathan considered the risk. "How much time would we have?" "Minutes. Maybe less." Before Nathan could respond, a low growl echoed from the shadows. The crew froze as glowing red eyes emerged. Dozens of drones, crawling along the walls like predatory insects. "They're here," James muttered, raising his weapon. Nathan didn't hesitate. "Elena, set the charges. James, Maya, cover her." The drones swarmed forward, their metallic limbs scraping against the metal walkways. Plasma fire erupted as James and Maya unleashed bursts of energy, cutting down the advancing machines. Elena knelt by the core, attaching the charges with swift precision. Sweat dripped down her brow, but she didn't falter. "Almost done," she called out. Nathan fired at a drone that lunged too close, knocking it from the platform. It plummeted into the abyss below, sparks trailing in its wake. The Sentinel's voice returned, echoing through the chamber. "You cannot stop the awakening." Nathan's eyes flickered to the far end of the chamber. The Sentinel stood there, its towering form illuminated by the core's light. "Elena, now," Nathan shouted. She slammed her hand against the detonator. The charges activated, and the core flickered violently. Energy surged outward in chaotic waves as the chamber trembled. "Run," Nathan bellowed. The crew sprinted toward the exit as the core imploded behind them. Fire erupted through the chamber, consuming the drones. The Sentinel's eyes locked onto Nathan as the flames engulfed it. "You have only delayed the inevitable," it growled before vanishing into the blaze. Nathan led his team down the corridor, the ship collapsing around them. They burst into the maintenance shaft just as the vessel trembled violently. As they climbed upward, Nathan's comms crackled to life. "Astra Voyager to Captain Cole. Do you read?" Relief flooded his chest. "This is Cole," he responded, gasping for breath. "Prepare for immediate extraction. We're coming home." But even as they ascended, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Somewhere, deep within the wreckage, something was still watching. Shadows of the Sentinel. The Astra Voyager's airlock sealed shut with a heavy clang, and Nathan Cole allowed himself a rare moment to breathe. The adrenaline that had fueled their escape now faded, leaving behind an uneasy silence. His crew was safe, for now, but the alien derelict still lingered outside, drifting ominously in the black void of space. Nathan stood at the viewport, watching the faint silhouette of the ancient ship. Even from this distance, it looked less like a vessel and more like the remains of some colossal predator, waiting for its next victim. James Vega leaned against the bulkhead, his arms crossed. We should have blown the whole thing to dust when we had the chance. Maya, still seated at her console, shook her head. That ship isn't just some relic. It's part of something bigger. Destroying it might have triggered something worse. Elena Ruiz, arms folded tightly around herself, nodded in agreement. The Sentinel's warning. It wasn't just for show. Whatever's inside that vessel isn't gone. It's waiting. Nathan listened but said nothing. His instincts screamed that this wasn't over. The Sentinel's final words echoed in his mind. You have only delayed the inevitable. Finally, he turned to Maya. Status report. Is the ship responding normally now that we're clear? Maya tapped the console. Comms are back. Shields holding steady. No damage. But I'm picking up faint energy signatures from the derelict. They're weaker than before, but still active. Nathan's brow furrowed. Active? I thought the core was destroyed. It was, Elena confirmed, frowning at her handheld scanner. But it looks like the core wasn't the only power source. James stepped forward, eyes narrowing. You're saying there's more? Elena hesitated. Yes. And, Captain, it's growing stronger. Nathan's grip tightened around the railing. He turned toward the bridge. Get me a direct visual on that ship. Maya expanded the screen, projecting a live feed from the exterior cameras. The derelict loomed on the display, its scarred surface still faintly glowing with residual heat from the explosion. But something had changed. Nathan stepped closer to the screen, his heart sinking. Across the ship's outer hull, jagged lines of light began to spread, like veins of molten metal crawling across its surface. The ship was regenerating. James exhaled sharply. That's not possible. Maya's hands flew across her console, amplifying the readings. It's drawing energy from somewhere. I can't trace the source. Nathan's gaze hardened. He had seen this kind of technology before. Living ships, machines that could heal themselves, but never on this scale. Captain, Elena said quietly, we didn't stop it. We triggered something worse. Before Nathan could respond, the ship's proximity alarms blared. Multiple contacts inbound. Maya called out, panic edging her voice. They're coming from the derelict. Nathan's eyes snapped to the display. From the alien vessel's hull, dark shapes detached and drifted toward the Astra Voyager. They were small at first, barely visible against the starry backdrop, but as they approached, their forms sharpened. Drones. Battle stations. Nathan barked. James, prepare the defense grid. Maya, activate evasive maneuvers. Keep them away from the hull. James sprinted to the weapons console, rapidly activating the ship's external cannons. They're fast, Captain. I don't know if we can shoot them all down. Nathan clenched his jaw. We won't need to. Just keep them occupied. The Astra Voyager banked sharply, thrusters firing in short bursts to evade the incoming swarm. Bright streaks of plasma fire erupted from the ship's turrets, tearing through the drones, but for every one they destroyed, 3 more emerged from the derelict. They're swarming, Maya muttered, her knuckles white. It's like they're trying to get inside. Nathan's mind raced. The drones weren't attacking to destroy them. They were boarding. Lock down all critical systems, he ordered. If they breach the hull, they can't reach the bridge. James fired another volley, taking out several more drones, but his expression remained grim. Captain, there's too many. Nathan turned to Elena. Can we jam their signal? Cut them off from the derelict. Alina's fingers moved quickly across the interface. I can try, but this technology, it's beyond us. Nathan's gaze darkened. Try anyway. Before Alina could begin, the ship lurched violently. Sparks erupted from the ceiling as the lights flickered. They're on the hull, Maya shouted. Deck C, Section 4. Nathan gripped the railing. James, take a team and repel them. I want them off my ship. James nodded, grabbing his rifle. On it. As James disappeared into the corridor, Nathan turned back to the viewport. The derelict ship now glowed brighter, as if feeding off the very energy of the drones it had sent. Alina's voice broke the silence. Captain, I found something. Nathan leaned over her console. What is it? She pointed to a fluctuating data stream. It's a frequency. Low, almost hidden, but constant. I think it's the key to controlling the drones. Nathan's eyes narrowed. Can we hijack it? Alina hesitated. It's risky. If I override their signal, the derelict might react. Violently. Nathan's jaw tightened. Do it. Alina nodded, fingers flying across the console. Linking now. Seconds felt like hours as the data scrolled across the screen. The drones on the hull continued their relentless assault, but slowly they began to falter. Maya gasped. It's working. The remaining drones detached, drifting lifelessly into space. Nathan exhaled, but before relief could settle, the derelict ship's glow intensified. A new signal burst forth, echoing across the void. On the screen, the silhouette of the Sentinel reappeared, larger and more menacing than before. You have interfered for the last time. Nathan's blood ran cold. This wasn't over. The Sentinel's gambit. The Sentinel's voice echoed through the Astra Voyager, each word vibrating through the ship's core, as if the derelict's very essence had intertwined with their systems. Nathan Cole stood frozen at the viewport, staring at the ominous figure projected on the screen. Its molten red eyes glowed brighter than before, burning like twin stars in the void. Alina, Nathan said quietly, not breaking his gaze from the Sentinel's silhouette. Tell me that signal you intercepted is still holding. Alina's fingers danced nervously over the console. It's fluctuating. I think the Sentinel's trying to override it. It knows we cut off the drones. James's voice crackled over the comms. Captain, we've cleared most of the drones from Deck C, but something's wrong. The hull. Before he could finish, the Astra Voyager shuddered violently. Sparks burst from the walls, and the ship tilted, sending Nathan stumbling into the railing. Warning klaxons screamed through the bridge as Maya frantically scanned her console. Captain, the derelict ship just latched onto us with some kind of energy tether. We're being pulled toward it. Nathan's eyes narrowed. The derelict wasn't just regenerating, it was actively seizing them. Engines to full reverse, he ordered. Break us free. Maya's hands flew over the controls. Engines are at maximum, but it's not enough. That thing's pulling us faster than we can compensate. Nathan's heart pounded. The derelict ship's dark silhouette expanded on the screen, its jagged form growing closer by the second. The glowing veins across its surface pulsed in rhythm with the tether, like a predator reeling in its prey. Alina, Nathan said firmly, I need options. Now. Alina scanned the data furiously. We could overload the engines, but it might tear the ship apart. Captain, James's voice returned, harsher this time. I'm on Deck C. You need to see this. Nathan tapped his wrist-mounted console, pulling up a live feed. His breath caught. The hull where the tether latched onto the Astra Voyager was changing. The metal around the tether twisted unnaturally, warping as if being rewritten by some alien force. Thin, vein-like structures began to spread from the point of contact, crawling like roots along the outer hull. It's spreading, James said. This isn't just a physical tether, it's infecting us. Nathan clenched his fists. This wasn't just a boarding attempt. The Sentinel was converting their ship. Alina, He said sharply, "If we don't sever that tether, we lose the Voyager. What about the weapons array?" Maya cut in. "I already tried. Plasma cannons have no effect. The energy disperses before it hits the tether." Nathan's frustration mounted. Every solution crumbled before him, and the derelict loomed larger with each passing second. Then Alina's console beeped unexpectedly. Her eyes widened. "Captain, I think I found something." Nathan stepped beside her. "Talk to me." She pointed at a faint anomaly flickering in the data stream. "That tether, it's not anchored to the Voyager. It's anchored to the signal we intercepted, the one controlling the drones. If we sever the signal from the inside, the tether should collapse." Nathan's expression hardened. "Are you saying we need to go back on that ship?" Alina nodded reluctantly. "Yes. But this time, we're not disabling the core. We're destroying the signal directly at the source." James's voice came through once more. "I volunteer." Nathan exhaled sharply. "You're not going alone." He turned to Maya. "Prep the shuttle for launch. We're heading back in." Maya's eyes darted between the derelict ship on the screen and Nathan's determined face. "Captain, last time we barely made it out. This could be suicide." Nathan's gaze didn't waver. "It's a risk we have to take. If we don't, the Astra Voyager becomes part of that thing." Maya hesitated for a moment longer, then nodded. Minutes later, aboard the derelict. The shuttle docked roughly against the derelict's outer hull, sending faint echoes reverberating through the ancient corridors. Nathan led the team out, plasma rifle in hand, followed closely by James and Alina. Maya remained on the shuttle, ready for a fast extraction if things turned south. The ship's interior had changed since their last visit. The previously dormant halls now pulsed with crimson light, and strange symbols flickered along the walls. Alina's handheld scanner emitted a steady hum, guiding them toward the source of the tether. "Whatever we're heading toward," Alina muttered, "it's deep within the ship." Nathan pressed forward, rifle raised as shadows shifted ahead of them. "Stay sharp," James warned. The corridors twisted unnaturally, reshaping as they walked. It felt less like exploring a ship and more like stepping through the veins of a living creature. Finally, they entered a massive chamber, one Nathan hadn't seen before. In the center hovered a massive crystalline structure, jagged and humming with energy. "The signal's coming from there," Alina whispered. But they weren't alone. Standing beside the crystal was the Sentinel. Its molten eyes locked onto Nathan the moment they stepped inside. "You return to embrace your end." Nathan raised his rifle. "Not today." The Sentinel extended its arm, and the drones began to emerge from the shadows. "Alina, do it now," Nathan barked. Alina sprinted toward the crystal, planting a disruptor charge at its base. The Sentinel moved toward her, but James opened fire, forcing it to halt. The chamber erupted into chaos. Plasma bolts flew as drones swarmed forward, but Nathan and James held their ground. "Alina," Nathan shouted. "Status." She slammed her hand against the detonator. The disruptor flared, and the crystal shattered, sending shockwaves rippling through the ship. The tether outside flickered violently, then snapped. Nathan grinned as he saw the Astra Voyager drift freely beyond the viewport. "Mission accomplished," Alina said, breathless. But the Sentinel's eyes still burned. "This is not your victory, human." As the chamber began to collapse, Nathan's eyes narrowed. "Maybe not. But we'll take the win for now." The Sentinel's return. The derelict ship trembled violently as the disruptor charge completed its work. The crystal that anchored the tether shattered into 1,000 glowing shards, illuminating the chamber with a brief, dazzling light. Nathan Cole shielded his eyes, feeling the raw energy ripple across the floor beneath his boots. "Alina, is the tether completely severed?" Nathan's voice was tight, his rifle still trained on the Sentinel. Alina tapped rapidly on her scanner, eyes darting across the fluctuating data streams. "It's gone," she confirmed, breathless. "The Astra Voyager is free, Maya's already pulling the ship to a safe distance. A flicker of relief washed over Nathan, but it didn't last. The Sentinel, despite the crumbling crystal at its feet, still stood. Its glowing red eyes dimmed for a brief moment, then reignited, brighter and more intense than before. James Vega reloaded his rifle with a sharp click. I was hoping that thing would go down with the rest of the ship. It's not bound to the crystal, Nathan replied grimly. It's something more. It doesn't need the tether to survive. You misunderstand. The Sentinel's voice cut through the chamber like a blade, deeper and more resonant than before. As it stepped forward, the walls around them rippled unnaturally, the ancient metal bending and reshaping itself. You severed the tether, but the connection remains. Nathan's grip on his rifle tightened. What does that mean? The Sentinel's head tilted slightly, as if curious. The signal is not confined to this vessel. It lingers within you. Nathan's blood ran cold. He exchanged a sharp glance with Elena, whose face paled as realization dawned. He's not lying, she whispered, staring at her scanner. The energy from the crystal. It left a residual signature. It's faint, but it's inside all of us. James took a step back, visibly shaken. Are you saying that thing infected us? It's not an infection, Elena corrected. It's more like a beacon, a tracking signal. Nathan's eyes narrowed. So wherever we go, it can follow. The Sentinel took another step forward. No matter how far you run, the awakening will find you. The signal cannot be erased. It binds you to us. The floor beneath them shifted suddenly, metal panels separating to reveal a deep chasm stretching into the ship's core. From the shadows below, more drones began to rise, twisted, skeletal machines that moved unnaturally as they climbed toward the platform. James aimed his rifle, firing a barrage of plasma bolts into the advancing drones. Captain, we need to leave. Now. Elena, route us to the extraction point, Nathan ordered, keeping his weapon locked on the Sentinel. Maya, prepare for an emergency pickup. We're cutting this mission short. Elena's fingers blurred across her handheld console, mapping the fastest route now. Got it. This way. Nathan and his crew moved swiftly, retreating through the shifting corridors as the Sentinel's drones followed in relentless pursuit. The derelict ship trembled around them, as if protesting their escape. As they sprinted through the narrow pathways, Nathan's mind raced. This wasn't just about severing a tether anymore. The Sentinel had left a mark on them, a mark that could follow them beyond this ship. Captain. Maya's voice crackled over the comms, strained but clear. Shuttles ready and waiting. Just get to the docking point in one piece. We're moving as fast as we can, Nathan responded. James took up the rear, firing calculated bursts to slow the advancing drones. But for every machine he destroyed, more emerged from the shifting walls. We're not going to hold them off for long, James growled. They're endless. We don't need to fight them all, Nathan said. We just need to make it back to the shuttle. They rounded the final corner, the docking bay coming into view. The shuttle's engines hummed with power, its bay doors wide open, casting bright white light into the derelict corridor. Maya's voice came through again. Hurry. I'm reading energy spikes near your position. That ship's getting unstable. Nathan and his crew sprinted toward the shuttle, the Sentinel's drones closing in fast. Just as James reached the entrance, the derelict ship convulsed, and the docking bay began to collapse. Nathan shoved Elena forward. Get inside. She stumbled into the shuttle, followed by James. Nathan was the last to board, leaping through the bay doors as the walls behind him crumbled. Go, 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 he shouted. Maya didn't wait for another word. The shuttle's thrusters ignited, propelling them away from the derelict ship just as it began to fold in on itself. Through the viewport, Nathan watched as the alien vessel imploded silently, collapsing into a singularity of burning metal and light. James let out a low whistle. I guess that's the end of that. Elena wasn't convinced. We severed the physical tether, but the Sentinel isn't gone. It's still linked to us, and it knows we escaped. Nathan leaned against the bulkhead, exhaustion seeping into his bones. Then we stay ready. We find a way to purge that signal before it finds us again. Maya glanced back at him from the cockpit. And if we can't? Nathan's gaze hardened. Then we make sure that when the Sentinel comes, we finish what we started. As the shuttle returned to the Astra Voyager, the faint hum of the Sentinel signal still lingered in the back of Nathan's mind, like a shadow that refused to fade. The final confrontation. The Astra Voyager drifted silently beyond the ruins of the derelict ship, but the tension inside was suffocating. The faint signal left by the Sentinel echoed through the vessel like a haunting whisper, subtle yet ever-present. Nathan Cole sat alone in his quarters, eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the crew's bioscans. The scans told him what he already feared. Each of them carried remnants of the alien signal, a ghostly trace that had embedded itself deep within their neural patterns. Nathan tapped his comm. "Bridge. Report." Maya's voice crackled through. "We've put 5 light-years between us and the derelict's remains, but the signal isn't fading. It's stable." Nathan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "Patch Elena through." Moments later, Elena's tired voice filled the room. "Captain, I've run the scans 5 times. I can confirm the signal's dormant for now, but it's not decaying naturally." "Dormant?" Nathan's jaw clenched. "Which means it can wake up at any time." "That's what worries me," Elena admitted. "It's almost as if the Sentinel is waiting for something." Nathan's gaze drifted to the viewport. Outside, space stretched endlessly, calm yet indifferent to their plight. "Elena," Nathan said quietly, "if the Sentinel activates that signal again, what happens to us?" There was a long pause before Elena responded. "I don't know, but if I had to guess, the signal could rewrite us the same way it tried to rewrite the Voyager." Nathan exhaled slowly. "Then we need to act first. Meet me in the war room in 10. War room. 10 minutes later. The small, circular war room was dimly lit, holographic projections of the derelict ship floating above the central table. Nathan stood at the head, flanked by Elena, James, and Maya. James crossed his arms. "I'll ask the obvious question. If that thing's still inside us, why don't we quarantine and wait it out?" Elena shook her head. "This isn't a biological virus. It's a signal. Quarantine won't stop it from spreading through the ship's systems if it activates." James frowned. "So what's the play, Captain? We sit around and hope it doesn't turn us into drones." Nathan's eyes narrowed as he studied the projection. His mind turned over the possibilities, searching for something they had missed. "There's one option," Nathan said finally. "We go back to where this started." Maya's eyes widened. "Back to the derelict." "Captain, it's gone." "Not the derelict," Nathan corrected. "The source of the Sentinel's technology. That derelict wasn't the beginning. It was part of something much larger." Elena said it herself. "The energy signatures we encountered suggest there are more vessels, maybe even an entire fleet out there." Elena adjusted her scanner, nodding slowly. "I've been tracking residual energy patterns since the destruction of the derelict. There's a faint trail, something far deeper in uncharted space. It could lead us to the origin of the Sentinel's kind." James grunted. "You're talking about chasing ghosts in hostile space. If we follow that trail, we might not come back." Nathan's eyes met his. "If we don't, the Sentinel will follow us anyway. We're not running. We're cutting this off at the root." A heavy silence settled over the room as the crew processed the weight of the decision. Finally, Maya spoke, her voice calm but resolute. "Then let's finish this." 3 days later, edge of uncharted space. The Astra Voyager cruised along the edge of a dark nebula, following the faint energy trail like a thread through the stars. Outside the viewport, space seemed unnaturally still, as if the region itself had been abandoned by time. Nathan stood at the bridge, eyes fixed on the swirling tendrils of the nebula ahead. "Anything yet?" he asked. Maya's hands hovered over the controls, still following the trail. But, Captain, I'm picking up faint anomalies just past the nebula's core. Anomalies. Nathan's brow furrowed. Elena leaned over Maya's console, enhancing the readings. It's weak, but it's there. A structure of some kind. Nathan's pulse quickened. Bring us closer. Steady. As the Astra Voyager breached the edge of the nebula, the anomaly emerged. A massive station, ancient and monolithic, drifting quietly in the dark. Its surface was covered in the same alien symbols as the derelict, but far more intricate and expansive. By God, James whispered. That's no ship. That's a fortress. Nathan stared in awe. The structure spanned miles, larger than any vessel he had ever encountered. It looked less like a station and more like the beating heart of an empire long forgotten. Elena's scanner blared. Captain, I'm picking up energy spikes. Something's waking up inside. Maya's hands flew over the console. We've been detected. Captain, we need tow. Before she could finish, the station's surface flickered with light. From the shadows, massive shapes detached. Warships, sleek and predatory, powering up after centuries of slumber. At the heart of it all, a towering figure emerged from the station's core. The Sentinel. But this wasn't the same entity they had encountered before. It was larger, more advanced, its eyes burning brighter than the stars around it. You have returned, as expected. Nathan's grip on the controls tightened, all hands to battle stations. The final confrontation had begun.